And welcome to Family Foundation Friday on the Authority of Love. I'm your host, Greg Williams, joined by our co-host, David Walls from the Family Foundation. David, thanks for joining us as always.
It's good to be with you, Greg.
Thanks, brother. And to you as listeners or viewers, however you may be engaging, we thank you for that. And also, thank you for sharing these. You can find these on the Family Foundation site, KentuckyFamily.org, or at Love and Lordship, that's A&D in the middle, loveandlordship.com. And we appreciate you sharing them. We just want to get this message out and encourage people in any way that we can. David, I know we're into the new year now, and you just went to D.C. last week. How was that?
Yeah,
just generally speaking.
Earlier this week.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it was just a couple days ago.
Wow, time flies, man.
Yeah, so the U.S. Supreme Court heard oral arguments in really two monumental cases that were kind of combined into one series of arguments over the Save Women's Sports laws, and continue to be so thankful. So many folks that listen to us, Greg, and engage with us. Send us notes that they're praying for the case, praying for the justices. But just to remind our listeners, this case centers over challenges that LGBT advocates have brought against common sense laws that simply say men don't belong in women's sports. I mean, it doesn't get any more basic. It doesn't get any more straightforward than that. And so Kentucky and 26 states, so 27 states in total, have some kind of fairness in sports, women's sports laws, specifically the laws out of our neighbors at West Virginia and then in Idaho were challenged. And so that was what the arguments were specifically over. But obviously, anytime an issue is up at the Supreme Court, it has national implications. And so I was blessed to be able to be up there actually with one of our board members and be with thousands of others from across the country. There was a rally outside on the steps. Our own University of Kentucky's Riley Gaines kicked off the rally as the very first speaker, so it was great to see her. But so many female athletes that came and shared their stories about how they've had to, deal with lost championships, lost opportunities, but much even deeper than that. I mean, violations of privacy, violations of dignity, things that no woman or girl in this country should have to deal with. And so just continue to be thankful for so many that stood up, that took a stand. Because let's remember, Greg, I mean, this issue has been going on for several years now. Kentucky, passed the Save Women's Sports Law, SB 83, back in 2022 with the leadership of State Senator Robbie Mills and Ryan Dotson in the House. There's been some folks that have been fighting on this issue for a number of years. And female athletes right now in the other 23 states, and the two states that were being argued that still are dealing with boys who are claiming that they're girls being able to participate in these sports. And so my hope and prayer is that this is the start of the end of the war on biology and the war on female athletes that we've seen across the country.
Well, and David, in following up on that with the social media, all that was on social media, I don't know if you saw it, but I got into a lengthy discussion with a guy that was on the Family Foundation page, and it ended up being good.
God bless you, Greg.
Well, it wasn't, lengthy for that.
Yeah.
But here's the interesting thing was I finally gave him exactly what he was asking for, the proof and the evidence of what's going on in Europe after 20 or 30 years of this and the devastation and how they're closing things down and the reality that you cannot truly change your sex or gender and all this other stuff is just a social construct. And I said, I'll close my end of it with it. He hasn't responded to that. Yeah. So I hope that he's hearing, I don't say that in spite or a victory or anything, just I hope that he's hearing what we want many to hear. Yeah. And that is that it's not only common sense, it's truth aligned with God's word, which we always talk about, and then it's reality.
Yes.
Let's not try and create a reality and call it something that it's not, because that's what's been going on. So it was very good, and the comments coming from the hearings for the most part were very encouraging. Not perfect, but very encouraging.
Yeah, very lengthy too. They were very, very long oral arguments. They went on multiple hours. And I had the opportunity, a couple of our allied family policy councils had folks that were actually able to get into the Supreme Court and be there to hear the arguments, including my former boss and friend and colleague, Jonathan Saenz, president and attorney of Texas Values. And I had the opportunity to talk with him right after he got out of the court, and he was just sharing some of the interesting arguments. He too was very encouraged. I mean, you never want to get ahead of yourself and make assumptions about what the Supreme Court, but with the strong court that we've had, with the victories that we've had on some important issues even last year, we feel really good that at the end of the day, the state laws are going to be upheld. The court is going to say yes. Of course, states have the ability to ensure that their female athletes are protected, and really that federal law is upheld, Title IX, because that's really the argument that the other side is making, is trying to turn, again, Title IX completely on its head, to take the term biological sex and to make it mean the exact opposite of what it really means. And what's interesting, too, was the attorneys for the ACLU were asked, essentially, the question of the age, apparently, that has stumbled so many folks, including a sitting Supreme Court justice. What is a woman? And still could not give a definitive answer. So Greg, I'm not an attorney. I don't know how you go into court and make an argument about a misinterpreting a law based on a term that you won't even define.
I think it was Chief Justice Roberts probably put the whole thing in its place when he said, how in the world can you tell me you're discriminating based on sex when you can't even define sex? You won't even tell me what sex is. That's I hate to say it this way, but in reality, that's the idiocy of this argument. And we go all the way back. We said it before, David, but back to Genesis 3, 4, and 5. You can be like gods. And that's literally what many people are trying to do. We don't want to hear that there's a God. We want to pick and choose what it is. So I'm so thankful that they're moving in that direction. Hopefully that will continue. As you said, we don't know, but hopefully it will continue. We got another thing that came out of D.C. as well, though, before we get into Kentucky's legislature, and that is I think this resolution and President Trump. And he made some statements that were a little concerning. Not a lot.
So, there continues to be, debate and discussion in D.C. about these extensions of the Obamacare subsidies that were put in place when Democrats were, in control of Congress in D.C. And we were told they will all be temporary. But
the Democrats voted to shut them down.
No government program, even if they claim it's going to be temporary, ever ends up being temporary.
Closest thing to eternal life,
But look, this is important for folks to know. The Hyde Amendment put in place by Henry Hyde, was a prohibition to try to ensure that our tax dollars never fund abortion. It's been a part of the federal government and the budget process for many, many years and decades now. And so, but Obamacare, and we're not going to relitigate that, but Obamacare's been a problem since the beginning.
It's actually working exactly the way they set it up to work. It's a failure, but they set it up there so that we would continue to pour into it as government programs do oftentimes.
But one of the many problems with Obamacare was that it essentially was able to get around the Hyde Amendment with some of the ability for our tax dollars to pay for abortion through the health care plans in the exchange. And so as this debate has continued to rage on, there were some very concerning comments that President Trump made where he said, essentially, Republicans need to be flexible on Hyde as this debate goes on. And there's been so many. We signed on to a pro-life letter, respectful letter to President Trump and to Vice President Vance and leaders in Congress. There is no flexibility when it comes to tax dollars, our tax dollars being used to pay for ending the life of an unborn child. It's a line in the sand. I really appreciate what Dr. Albert Mohler said earlier this week is, one of the things we appreciate, we know about President Trump is the art of the deal. He likes to make deals. Well, sometimes there are deal breakers. And as Dr. Mohler said, and I completely agree, this is a deal breaker when it comes to the pro-lifers not being able to compromise.
He's going to lose
on
a
this
lot.
issue.
And that is how Speaker Mike Johnson has basically said the same thing, too. We're going to stand firm on this. This will not happen. So I find it interesting, too. I shared this with our good friend Adia Wushner on Wednesdays for Women. But I find it interesting that a very conservative senator from Illinois 50 years ago got this amendment passed, and a very liberal senator and then president has pushed for us to overturn it. That's what's being used. It's a perfect picture in contrast.
So just a quick update to get folks up to date on where we are. Unfortunately, the House of Representatives at the federal level, Democrats with, I think, like 17 Republicans move forward a very problematic version of the extension of Obamacare subsidies. So now the debate is in the Senate. And we need to be encouraging our United States Senator McConnell, Senator Rand Paul, to draw a line on the sand. Look, I don't think that these subsidies should be extended at all.
Right.
But we
Definitely
certainly cannot have anything that does in any way undermines Hyde or puts our tax dollars at further risk to being used for ending life. So if you go to our website right now at KentuckyFamily.org, one of the action items that you can take action on is to send a message to Senator McConnell and Senator Paul on this issue. Encourage folks to do that and to do that right now. Because I just got back from D.C. The debate is raging. Even in the midst of the oral arguments, folks were talking about a lot about this issue that are up in Washington,
which
D.C.
tells you how huge of an issue it is. So please do that. Pray, as we always talk to you about. Please pray, but take action. Put some hands and feet to your prayers and allow the Lord to use you in that way. Quick update on some things you wanted to let our listeners know about Kentucky's legislature after the second week.
I almost hate to have spent this much time talking about Washington, D.C., Greg, because I'm a
It is
firm
what it
believer
is.
that what happens in Frankfurt and state capitals is so many times much more important. And so the General Assembly is continuing to go on the 60-day session, and there's been some really good bills that have been filed since you and I last talked last week, Greg. One of those is Senate Bill 72. That's the Medical Conscience Act by Senator Donald Douglas. This is an issue, a critically,
He's my senator.
A critically important issue to protect the medical conscience rights of all those that are in the medical field. And so we're going to be communicating more about that bill as we move forward, but we're very thankful Senator Douglas has filed that bill once again. It's time to get that issue done. It's passed the Senate. Hasn't ever passed the House before, but this is the session to get that bill across the finish line. I believe that. Another bill that I'll mention, House Bill 334, the Women's Bill of Rights, has been filed by Representative Kenny Massaroni, completely picking up on the oral arguments on Save Women's Sports. This is kind of the next step of that. One of the important things this bill would do is just very clearly in state law, once and for all, define what a woman is, define what a man is, and to make those things crystal clear in state law. And it's actually a really important policy thing for us to do. And then just another one that I'll mention, Greg, is House Bill 360. I actually just recently did a media interview on this. This is a bill by Representative Scott Sharp to stop these drag shows and hypersexualized performances that are targeting our kids and many times taking place on public property and using our tax dollars. Some folks may not realize that we haven't already got that bill passed because there had been a lot of attention on it and bills had passed before, but it's never gotten through both chambers. So this is a very simple bill that would simply just say you can't do these things in front of kids, and they can't happen on public property. And I think that's as straightforward as we can get. So encourage folks to be praying for engaging. Another action that you can take on our website is just to send a message to your legislators and let them know you're going to be praying for them this session.
And there are many more. We don't have time today, but we will continue to update you on those. And we want to thank you for listening and following and sharing these messages to help others as well. Now, a couple of dates. March 11th is the March for Life at Frankfurt. We'll be there at Frankfurt. And so the Kentucky Right to Life puts that on, but we're certainly a part of that. The other thing is we want to let you know is America Reads the Bible, April 18th through the 25th. We are so excited. We're humbled and honored. I know I am. I know David is as well. And Adia, our co-host on Wednesdays for Women, is also going to be part of that in reading. So save the dates. Join us live streamed across the country. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for your prayers. Thanks always to the Lord.